Hello everyone, this is Evan, and this is going to be a pretty quick video. I just kind of wanted to go over my process of how I pick decks for a major, and just kind of walk you through the way I approach things when it comes to that. So I'm just going to be using my deck choice Gholdengo for NAIC just as my example here. But yeah, so let's just get into it. So the first thing that I would recommend for picking a deck is you need to make sure you're comfortable with the deck. So I know some people will, like some people like Henry Child, they just play the same deck the whole season, and that's one way to approach it. But the issue with this is sometimes if your one deck is not a good call for the tournament, then you're not really gonna have much practice with anything else, most likely. So, yeah, it's either play something you don't know well, or just the um, play the deck that you've been playing. So that's why I prefer to kind of be more flexible with my deck choice. I played 6 majors this past season and played 4 different decks between them. So I kind of like to practice with just about everything, so that no matter if one of my decks is not a good play for the tournament, then I at least have multiple options for decks that I know how to play. So I believe I played Ancient Fox twice, Gholdengo twice, and then I played Zoroark and Snorlax each once. So yeah, nice variety of decks there that I played. So yeah, so the next thing is I think you should definitely have your deck locked in by at least 1 week, preferably like 2 weeks before the tournament, just so you have enough time to practice, because you don't want to, pick a deck like the day before the tournament and expect to do well, because then you won't have much time to practice the matchups unless you already know the matchups. But if you're going to pick a new deck, you need to decide at least a week or two before the tournament. So yeah, I ended up going with Gholdengo because I thought it was the correct play. So how I usually determine if a deck is a good play, like I did with Gholdengo here, is well, the first thing you can do is look at the online tournament results. So this is just a recent online tournament with over 700 players. So you can kind of just look at what percent of the meta each deck was. So, Gardevoir is 14%, Grimmsnarl is 12%, Raging Bolt is 9%, and so on. And kind of just use that to determine, just to get like a, like a, like just a start for what the meta will look like at the major. Obviously, it doesn't transfer over completely, so you can't just like look at these results and go to a major tomorrow and expect Gardevoir to be 14%, Grimmsnarl to be 12%, and so on. Like, it's not going to be like the exact same, because there's like a lot of decks here that are not very good, but yeah, that's pretty much one way to look at things. And another thing to keep in mind is if you click on the deck and you can see how it matches up into the rest of the metagame. So for instance, Dragapult Dusknoir is like a 60% matchup. It won 15 out of 25 against Dragapult Dusknoir. So you can kind of just use that to kind of see how it matches up into the other decks. But you definitely need to take this with a grain of salt, because yeah, because in online tournaments, there's a lot of players who maybe don't know the deck very well. There's also a lot of glitches on TCG Live, so it's possible for a deck to just lose a game that otherwise would be very winnable just because of a glitch. So definitely don't take these to heart too much. Just kind of use them to get an idea of the matchups. So now when it comes to determining what deck you're actually going to play, and this is just assuming that you're trying to find the objectively best deck rather than just playing a comfort pick or something, and we'll get more into comfort picks in a little bit, but yeah, when it comes to just finding the objective best play, I kind of just like to think about the top decks and which one, and I kind of just use process of elimination. Like if I have a good reason to not pick a deck, then I'll eliminate that one, and eventually I'll get to just a few decks that all seem like very strong plays. So, for example, going into NAIC, I kind of had like all the top decks in mind here, and I didn't really want to play Raging Bolt because it kind of has a rough Gardevoir matchup, and I also didn't think it was that good into Dragapult and Grimmsnarl. The deck is consistent, but I just didn't think it had the matchup spread, so I didn't want to play Raging Bolt. I didn't really want to play Grimmsnarl just because it's, you know, like the new big deck, and everyone's going to be prepared for it, and I also thought it had a few rough matchups, such as Joltik Box. Dragapult could get kind of sketchy at times, and then, of course, the Flareon players were adding Leafeon, which makes that matchup bad, so I didn't think Grimmsnarl was an excellent play either. I didn't really want to play Gardevoir just because I was scared of the Grimmsnarl matchup, and obviously I didn't know of the Isaiah Bradner build at that time, so I didn't really want to play Gardevoir. Gardevoir was actually pretty high on my list of considerations going into the event because, you know, I thought it had an okay Raging Bolt matchup, pretty decent into Dragapult, pretty decent into Joltik and Flareon, but a few matchups like Grimmsnarl and Gholdengo were definitely rough, so I decided to eliminate Gardevoir as well. I was very adamant on Joltik being a bad play for the tournament. I did not think the deck was very good going into the tournament, and we kind of saw that play out. Like, a lot of them made day 2, but like the highest placing one was 78th place, so it definitely didn't have the strongest showing, and I was pretty confident that Joltik Box was not great into a lot of the metagame. Like, I thought the, like, it basically beat Grimmsnarl, but was not great into everything else. Like, your Grimmsnarl and your Dragapult matchup is maybe slightly favored, but you lose to Bolt, you lose to Gardevoir, and, you know, I just didn't think it was a great play, so I decided not to play that. And then Dragapult was good into basically everything but Gardevoir. Dragapult was a deck that I really wanted to play. That was probably going to be my second choice for the tournament if I didn't play Gholdengo, but I just couldn't like get to a point where I was confident I could beat Gardevoir. And then when it comes to like Flareon just lost to Gardevoir, and all these rogue decks, like I was kind of considering a few of them, like mostly the Iron Thorns Crustle deck, which I'm going to get into in a minute, but, you know, like, the rogue decks are kind of riskier, and you have to be, like, 100% confident that you're going to play it well to actually play that to the event, because, you know, it's just so risky. So, yeah, it came down to I had eliminated most of the options. The ones left were Gholdengo, Dragapult, and actually Charizard Pidgeot. And Dragapult just lost to Gardevoir. Charizard Pidgeot, I didn't think it was that consistent, and looking back, it might have been a better play than Gholdengo, but I decided to just go with Gholdengo because it had, like, pretty okay matchups into everything, like a slight unfavored into Raging Bolt, but that matchup was actually not that bad, so I just decided to play Gholdengo, and that's kind of just how I got to that point. So, sorry for the long-winded explanation there, but, yeah, so the next thing is you kind of have to be careful with picking what matchups you're going to lose to, because, of course, most decks are going to have bad matchups into something. If there are no bad matchups for the deck, then it's like the BDIF, and everyone's going to tech for it, which will result in it having more bad matchups. So no matter what deck you play, unless you have some broken sauce that no one knows about, then you're going to have to take bad matchups into something. So it's important to be strategic when it comes to deciding what decks you're going to lose to. So I'm actually going to use my Portland tournament for this one, just because I think it's a better example. So I played Zoroark here, and if we look at the metagame, there was about 10% Joltik, and I was pretty confident that Zoroark, or at least my list of Zoroark, beat just about everything else in the format. Raging Bolt was like kind of close, but slightly favored if you can set up. Gardevoir was like almost, it was like 70-30, like very good matchup. Dragapult could be kind of close depending on how they set up, but I was pretty confident with that matchup. I thought that it was pretty okay. And then Flareon was actually not great, but like Joltik and Flareon were pretty much the only bad matchups for the deck. And, you know, it's, they were actually like a pretty good portion of the metagame, but my idea was, if we're looking at my list here, I actually teched pretty hard for the bad matchups. So the two League HQs, not only did they significantly improve the Raging Bolt matchup, but also if you can draw into those early enough against Joltik, you can sometimes just brick them for the whole game because they just won't have enough energies to actually close out the game. So my idea was, against the Joltik matchup, like the Joltik matchup, don't get me wrong, if they know how to play the matchup, it was still kind of rough just because of, you know, they're just so much faster, and if they can just start prize trading before we can get the League HQ down and start attacking, then it definitely gets dicey. But my idea was Joltik is an easier deck to play. It's going to be commonly played by less experienced players, so they're going to be more likely to misplay, so that's why I'm okay taking a unfavorable matchup into that. And I actually ended up not hitting a single Joltik throughout the tournament, but yeah, I thought that was fine. And yeah, kind of just worked out. But the last thing I'm going to go into is, or actually second to last thing, I'm going to go over one more thing. But when it comes to picking up a rogue deck, so my example here is Ironthorn's Crustle. I actually came up with this idea before basically anyone else had thought of it, like at the very start of the format, and as the format developed, more people kind of started catching on, and people started to play it more because they realized it actually had a pretty decent matchup spread. But like, when I came up with this, I was like, okay, this deck is just broken. Like, I didn't think it lost to anything, at least, like, at the top of the metagame. Like, I was like, Bolt is free, Gardevoir's free, Grimmsnarl's free, Flareon's free, Dragapult's free, and I just thought, like, every single matchup was so free for the deck. So I was actually debating playing this deck for a while, and it seemed really good on paper, but then when I actually started testing it, the deck was kind of just bricky, and I realized that Raging Bolt was very losable because if they can just attack with the one prize bolt enough, then they can sometimes outtrade you. Gardevoir was very losable just because you need to basically lock them out with Thorns, and there's a lot of lines they can take in that matchup. Grimmsnarl could be losable because they have Devo. Like Flareon and the Dragapult decks were pretty free, but like any deck with Charizard and Chi-Yu was also not great because the Chi-Yu just prize trades into you. So I kind of just realized that the deck wasn't as good as I initially had, as my initial judgment, which is okay. So sometimes you just, you'll just think a deck is really good and it ends up not being that great. So that's why testing the deck is very important. The last thing I'm actually going to get into is comfort picks. So in general, if all else fails, just go with your comfort pick, because let's say you go with all the methods and you just can't really seem to feel great about playing any deck. Nothing seems to work that great. Just play your comfort pick, even if it's not the best call for the tournament, because you're better off, like if your comfort pick is Raging Bolt, like for instance in this metagame, Raging Bolt was not great for NAIC, like it didn't have the best matchups, but let's say it's your comfort pick, and you know, you've tried Grimmsnarl, you've tried Gardevoir, you've tried Joltik, you've tried everything, and nothing seems to work that great. Just play Raging Bolt. It'll be fine. Because because you're better off just playing a deck you know the ins and outs of, and taking some bad matchups, rather than just like trying to pick up Gardevoir at the last minute and not doing well because you have good matchups, but you just don't really know how to play them. So, yeah, in general, just kind of have your comfort deck as your second option, just in case. And one more thing, something that a lot of players kind of will do is they'll just pick a deck not really based off the matchup spread, but rather because they think the deck is rather fun to play. And if you're just kind of going to the event just to enjoy yourself, maybe get like a few wins, but not stress too hard about the result, then that's fine. Just play whatever is fun. But if you're actually wanting to get, like day 2s, top 64s, top 32s, or even better, like competing for a Worlds invite, you need to be picking a deck based off if you believe it can win, rather than just a fun deck. So, if your fun deck is like Gardevoir or something, then sometimes it just works out. But like if your fun deck is United Wings, like it might be time to just pick something boring and just have a better chance of winning if that's what you're there for. And that's kind of what I had to do at NAIC. Like Gholdengo, I will admit I'm not a big fan of the Gholdengo deck. I just never really liked the style of deck that just goes for like a 2/2/2 prize race. And yeah, given the choice, I would have played something a little more fun if I was not trying to win, but I really wanted to win. So I had to make the choice to play something that gives me a better chance of winning, even if it's not the most enjoyable. So, like, I've made that mistake before. Like at Louisville, I just picked like Ancient Box, which was my favorite deck at the time, and didn't go great because it wasn't a great play for the tournament. However, if I had played like Lugia or I don't remember what else was a good play. There were like a few of them, like Lost Box or something. Um, Even like Raging Bolt, all those decks were pretty decent plays. And if I had just played something that I didn't really want to play, but um, it would have gotten me a better result, then I probably would have done better. But that's kind of just the last thing I'm gonna go over today. Pick a deck based off if it gives you a better chance of winning, if that's what you're trying to accomplish. So don't like set those limitations to yourself, like say, I'm only going to play this deck because it's fun. Because, like if you're wanting to get good results, sometimes you have to make those hard decisions. But anyways, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to. If you don't, that's okay as well. But, yeah, I'll see you.